Thank you, Dr. Poyman. In the words of the old gospel hymn, to God be the glory, great things he hath done. All right. And, I think we just have to be mindful that none of us can do what we do alone. My wife of 34 years is not here today. She is working. She's a real estate appraiser and deals with government and things like that all the time. But she puts up with me and all the crazy stuff that goes on. And in fact, this last campaign season, with some of the mailers we were getting, she didn't realize that she was married to such a sorry individual. But she stuck with me. And thank you, Dr. Joe Poyman, who began this venture. I think back when, a lot of people probably thought that Joe Poyman was tilting at windmills. Don Quixote, and people probably looked at Roe versus Wade as this great immovable wall, and that Joe Poyman just buttoned his head against it. But that's the thing is that you remember the story and that Jesus told about the parable of the unjust judge about never giving up, and remember what it tells us in Galatians is that do not become weary in doing good, for in due season you will reap harvest if you don't give up. And Joe Poyman never gave up. He kept swinging his sword. Yeah. And because of Joe Poyman, the work of Joe Poyman and you all together, is that when Dobbs came along, Texas was ready. Texas was already poised. They anticipated that. And what vision, Dr. Poyman? What a legacy that you have left in the lives of Texas and all of you sitting in this room have been part of that. And not just you, but countless churches and Christian schools and just moms getting out there knocking on doors and irritating people and getting kind of chewed out and stuff like that. We've all done that. You've written checks, you've sent emails, you've done all those things, and we work in education. I work in education, and maybe that that's a little bit of a parallel. Is that if you think about it, is that none of us got to where we are today alone. We all had somebody that poured into your life, that invested in you. Most likely parents, but frequently you had pastors and youth ministers that did that. You had teachers and coaches, and so you can all think, if you just think for just a moment, that there was those few people that really made the difference, and there's something that they said to you at a critical juncture, and here you are. And having done the things that we've done, whether it be in our education, whether it be in our spiritual walk, whether it be in our professional life, none of us gets here alone. And that old Christmas classic, "It's a Wonderful Life." No man is an island. And what a great show. And so. And I will tell you that it's really nothing short of a miracle that I'm standing here today. It is the story is a little, it has a few twists and turns. I was born in Brussels, Belgium, and anytime people say, "Well, was it military?" Well, no, it wasn't quite military. My mother was homeless. And following the breakup of between my mother and my father, she went home to Wisconsin, where she was from, and back then the divorce was perceived a little bit differently, and there was a conflict that happened there, and at the end of that she was out of the house, and she took up residence in these summer cabins on the edge of a lake in Wisconsin, that had really nowhere to go, and evidently that someone let her stay there, but these are summer cabins, and this is Wisconsin. Winter was coming. It's not like Central Texas winter. And she had a sister that whose husband was in the Foreign Service and was stationed in Brussels, and made arrangements for her to get on an airplane and take my brother, who was 1.5 or so, and that's how she wound up in Belgium. I was born, and the fact that I was born was a little something that my mother did have a complication in her pregnancy that she was told that she would never carry that pregnancy to term, but she did, and so there I was. Interestingly enough, my brother and I have the same birthday, 2 years apart. Now, if I'd been born in the United States, I would have been born on the 19th. So that's pretty drastic to get your kids born on the same day. Let's go all the way. So, December 20th. December 20th. So my father was a high school dropout, and who had abandoned his eventually when he was gone. I met him once when I was 26 years old. As it turns out, he had done that before, and years later, I found out that I had this is even before Ancestry.com, which kind of surfaces a lot of stuff. That I had 2 half siblings, and this last summer I had a chance. 2 summers ago, I had a chance to meet one of them. But my mother struggled mightily. We faced poverty and food insecurity. She tried really hard to raise her 2 boys, but her boys needed a dad that we didn't have. My brother was pretty much a juvenile delinquent, and I was right behind him. She worked 40 miles away, and sometimes we went to school. Sometimes we didn't. And my mother searched for a solution, and she was in a crisis. And things got really bad. Is that my brother was not only in drugs and things, and he became violent. And answered prayer of a mother is that she got a fundraising mailer from this place called Cal Farley's Boys Ranch, and she began to explore that, and eventually, long story short, is that my brother and I wound up there at Cal Farley's, and from California to Cal Farley's Boys Ranch in the Panhandle, and so my brother had to be tricked into it. It was kind of interesting. She told him that they were going to go check out this place, and then when they got there, she told him he was going to stay, and they locked himself in the car, and they had to be negotiated out. It was kind of a wild deal. But that's where we went. I spent 7 years there at Cal Farley's, and I will tell you that it was there at Cal Farley's Boys Ranch that I really heard the gospel message for the very first time. And earlier this month, when I was sworn in, one of the Bibles I always used to swear in on was that first Bible that I received from Boyd Latshaw at Cal Farley's Boys Ranch. And I will tell you that when you were at a boys ranch, everybody had a laundry number. And so for 7 years, I was JH39. And everything that I owned was marked. Every piece of property I owned was marked JH39. And they called it a laundry number because we had the big central laundry, and everything kind of went out in these big hoppers, and everything, and they had to come back and they bundled it and all this kind of stuff. But that's, the Boys Ranch alumni group, we always kind of laugh about that, because we also had to sort laundry, so we had to not only know ours, we had to know all the laundry numbers in our dorm, and so I can still tell you who those people are. And it was, we were really blessed to have, have a strong Christian influence and a very structured environment. I'll just an aside before I kind of get to the main thing, what we're talking about. Dances were kind of interesting, because this was Cal Farley's Boys Ranch, just like it. And so when we'd have a dance, a yellow school bus would pull up with a load of girls. I have no idea how they got them, where they came from, but they would get off and you had a date for the night. And they'd get back on the bus and like that, and what girls would do that? I mean, but it was good. It was kind of one of those unique situations. Like, did that really happen? That really happened, But I think that if you can kind of see the irony is that a guy that started out the son of a homeless mom and the son of a high school dropout has served 12 years on the Texas State Board of Education. America's a great place. And I think it's really, I think it's really important to understand is that, in our country, circumstance is not destiny. Victimhood is optional. So that is, that's a great, I think it's a great story. And the thing about it is that we find these great stories all over Texas. And in our public schools, and I know that there's a lot of things that sometimes you hear a lot of bad things about public schools, but I will tell you that there's a lot of dedicated teachers out there doing that good work. My daughter's one of them. Teaches in a little place called Water Valley outside of San Angelo, Texas. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and you hear about some of the crazy stuff that happens. Well, in Water Valley, Texas, it's not even a town, by the way. There's no city council, there's no city government. It's just a community. And some of the craziness that you hear in Water Valley, Texas, if that happened at a school, they wouldn't put up with that for 24 hours. All those people go to about the same church, and they wouldn't put up with it. But I think that it goes to say that education is really of critical importance. I took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that is the oath that we all take. And by the way, did you know that public school teachers also take an oath of office? They do. And it is the same oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I will tell you that the work that we do in education is core to that oath. It is core to that oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. John Adams, of course, our second president, but he also pretty much wrote the Massachusetts Constitution, and really was a big believer in education. And John Adams, in his speech notes once wrote, he said, "The preservation of liberty depends on the intellectual and moral character of the people. As long as knowledge and virtue are diffused generally among the body of a nation, it is impossible that they be enslaved." Thomas Jefferson wrote, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be." And so I think that it goes without saying is that I think that our founders understood that our form of government requires education, that the people be engaged. And hence, in 1836, when a group of 57 men gathered at Washington on the Brazos and wrote a Texas Declaration, and they noted that the current government had failed to fund public education. They made this note. They said that unless a people are educated and enlightened, it is idle to expect the continuance of civil liberty or the capacity for self-government. And that is the essence of the mission of public education. Yes, we are raising up children and graduates to be college ready, to be career ready, to be military ready, but at the end of the day, they have to be ready to be engaged as citizens. And I will tell you that it's a big job. It's a nuanced job, and I want to talk to you just a few things about things that we have going. I'm not going to talk to you much about vouchers today because we do have the Senate did pass a form of that. I do believe that there will be a form of school choice come out of this legislature, without a doubt. What that looks like, I don't know. I will tell you that I think that there are probably some concerns in the current bill version. I will tell you that there's a lot of vitriol and a lot of hysterics. I will tell you that probably, here's the thing is that, school choice will not be the great Satan that's being made out to be. Never is. And is it the great Savior? Well, I think it's a tool in the toolbox. It's a tool in the toolbox because this thing is big and it's nuanced. But I do want to talk to you about a couple other things. Is that one of the things is that has been a great concern about what's in our school libraries. What's in our school libraries? And I will tell you that we worked with Jared Patterson in the last session to get House Bill 900 over the finish line and to definitively define what those library standards are, what is protected speech, what is not, and what the expectation was. There was a little bit of a hitch in that, and that is that part of that bill required the library vendors, the people who are selling the books, to create a rating system to rate those books based on sexually explicit and sexually relevant material. The problem is the booksellers didn't want to do it. And so they pursued that in federal court, and they prevailed. It's actually still an open issue. It's not actually hasn't been resolved, but it went to the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit essentially said, well, that is compelled speech, is that they can't really require the booksellers to opine on those books, and so that has been remanded back to a lower court. But I think that it goes without saying is that I'm not real sure that we really want the people who put the books there in the first place to be in charge of rating the books. I'm just saying. This is now supposed to be the age of common sense. And I'm just thinking, why was it done that way? Why was it done that way in the first place? Well, they were trying to avoid a fiscal note. And so I had about a 2-hour breakfast meeting with Representative Patterson a few months ago, and the State Board of Education has raised their hand and said, look, if you want a transparent process to review these books, we know how to review books. We already do it. For textbooks, for instructional material, we know how to do those things. We need to have a transparent process. We need to have a process that engages citizens and that comes before an elected body, and we can approve that list. And so that bill has been filed by Representative Patterson, and I know a lot of people are going wringing their hands like, oh my gosh, it's like, well, how many books? I mean, is the State Board of Education going to be able to handle that? I said, well, yeah, I think we can. It's not as if we're going to rate every book in the library. Now, we have to come up with rules on how a book gets to us, but last time I checked, there's nothing sexually explicit in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. James and the Giant Peach, and Sponge and Spiker. I don't know about those two, but nothing bad there. And so I think it's something that we have to do, and we have to get these. And by the way, if anybody who tells you that those books don't exist in those school libraries, they're gaslighting you, because I have some of them in my possession, and I have them. I have looked at them, and then when you get through looking at them, you need to go take a shower. I want to talk to you a little bit about House Bill 1605 a little bit for two reasons. There's an opportunity for there's a couple of opportunities for engagement here. Okay, House Bill 1605 was passed last session by Buckley, Representative Buckley up in Salado. He's a neighbor of mine. He lives about 10 miles from me. It was the largest instructional material bill probably passed in the history of Texas, and it did a lot of different things. But I'm going to just kind of give you a little bit of a nutshell and kind of the pieces of it that are probably most relevant here, what we're talking about today. And that is that it kind of returned back to the State Board of Education some of the authority that it had prior to 2011. In 2011, there was a piece of legislation called SB 6 that passed that stripped much of that authority from the board. At that time, the board, every stitch of material pretty much that came into a classroom had been vetted by the State Board of Education. In 2011, the legislature said, well, school districts, you can do whatever you need to do, just certify that you're meeting, at least you're meeting 100% of the TEKS with whatever you're buying. The State Board of Education was limited in terms of what we could do. If it had a factual error, we could keep it off the list. If it had a factual error, we could keep it off the list if it didn't meet 50% of the TEKS, or if it had a bad binding. That was pretty much it at that time. And I mean, it didn't really speak to much of anything else. Didn't really speak to anything about was it written on grade level? How was it put together? What was the quality of that? Or was it written with any kind of bias or anything like that? I mean, we had no way of getting at any of those things. I just want you to know that the ACLU has come out against it and is trying to intimidate our school districts. Please encourage your school districts. By the way, it's great material. It has been piloted up in Temple ISD, Lubbock ISD with great result. And so I would just say, just encourage your local school districts. Commissioner Morath, General Paxton, and Governor Abbott has come out with a statement. I'm still looking for it, that they came out with that, I think, yesterday in support of our school districts. Last thing I'm going to just kind of mention is a little bit of our work on the Permanent School Fund. That is a $57 billion endowment fund that supports public education. The work that we've done on that is to pull it out from the Texas Education Agency and created a governmental corporation so we could operate more like the private sector. But a couple things that I think that are really significant is that one of the things that became very apparent to us is, and you need to listen to this and listen very carefully, because all of you have pension plans and such, is that there is a process called proxy voting. If you own shares in a company, you have the ability to vote proxies. And what you find is that there's a lot of things, that a lot of corporate governance and a lot of corporate policy that's being driven by these proxy voting issues in these corporate annual meetings. The State Board of Education, well, the Permanent School Fund had historically been just abstaining from anything that really didn't apply to us. And we didn't think that was a very good idea. For one thing is that a lot of that was a lot of ESG. And so that's where we were getting a lot of policies, corporate policies, that were really mitigating against oil and gas, but also in favor of abortion. So the question is that if you are invested somewhere, how are your shares being voted is a really important question. And so the Texas Permanent School Fund adopted a what we call an ESG skeptic approach, a very conservative posture when it came to proxy voting, because the Permanent School Fund casts between 40 and 50,000 proxy votes every year because of the size of the fund we are, because of what we own. And I'm proud to tell you that as a result of that, there were several pro-abortion proxies, propositions that were on corporate ballots that we voted no on, and we didn't abstain. And we became the first fund in Texas to adopt this posture and this policy on proxy voting. But I think it goes to say is that be careful of how your shares are being voted. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Big hand.
Yeah.
If you're willing, Mayor Maynard, Member Maynard, we've got a time for a couple of questions.
Yep.
This one.
Hi. I was wondering about what you said. People who are certified as teachers do something with textbooks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we are now taking, and I will send this over to Dr. Poyman, and he will get it out on a distribution. And so yes, we do have the opportunity. You can be a reviewer for instructional material. So there's two pieces to that. One is to be a quality reviewer. It's helpful if you've had training as a teacher and all those pieces, or if you have experience with that. And then, but the other piece of that is, I mean, it's helpful. It's not necessarily a disqualifier if you don't, but if you have experience with that, I think it's helpful. The second piece of that is suitability, and the suitability is just the application of our suitability rubric, that just inappropriate material and things that should not be there.
Quality, do you have to be a certified teacher, or would that just be helpful?
It would be helpful. I mean, what they're going to look at is they're just going to look at your experience, But for instance, like, maybe if you had experience in another state, but you're not certified in Texas, but I think that would qualify you, Yeah.
Hi, I would just like to ask, you were talking about the phrases from the word, and what was that? How do I tell Mr. Paxton and them, what would I say? What?
Yeah, I think the answer is that we just need to just encourage our school districts and our elected officials to stand behind our school districts and not, the ACLU put out a letter, and I thought it was a thinly veiled lawsuit threat, but the more I read it is that I think it's just intimidation tactics, and we've seen this before. This is what the left always does, and it's just bully tactics. And so I think we just need to encourage all of our elected officials to stand behind Blue Bonnet Learning, and that is the OER. It's good material.
Is that how you do the proxy vote, through Bluebonnet Learning?
Now, the proxy vote is through corporate shares, so yeah, that's a whole different animal.
Well, let's do that. Set it up for us. We'll do it.
Do the
Proxy voting. Give us a way to proxy vote.
okay. Well, you have to own shares in a company. Yeah. You have to vote your shares in a company. Yeah. So.
Hi, Tom. About a year ago, I worked with a group of moms in the Liberty Hill School District and removed about 300 explicit books, LGBT, everything, from middle school and up. Thank you. But at the school board meeting, all the librarians showed up and obviously had a clear alliance and were very upset that the books were removed. So what can the State Board of Education do because this is what we're up against, is even if the school's trying to do right, they're meeting in Dallas to figure out how to get their books in.
Yeah.
And it's not even the library, it's the classrooms. I would sub and I would find them in the classrooms. So it's just, they're just filtering them every way they can.
So House Bill 900 applies to both the central library and the classroom libraries. Okay. And so, that's not a workaround where we'll just keep it in our classrooms. Okay. So what we're trying to do is when the lawsuit came along, all of that fell into the lap of local school boards. And so now is that, 1,200 different boards of ISDs and charter schools have to do it 1,200 different ways. And I will tell you that most local school boards don't feel like that they signed up for that. They get really uncomfortable when they have protesters in front of their school board meeting. For the State Board of Education, Chris, right? Business as usual. There's always a protest in front of our building that's like, well, who is it today? So I think that the thing that we need to do is that, we're not going to be intimidated by that, is that we just have to apply the law. And the law is already very clear on that, is that if it is classed as sexually explicit, it is not lawful. And we're not going to, and by the way, the president of the American Library Association is a self-identified Marxist, just so you know. We actually, there was some rule text that came out of the State Board of Educators certification. We have to approve all of their stuff that comes to us on credentialing. And on librarians, there was a reference to the ALA guidelines, which included the language that they believe that children should be able to explore without the surveillance of their parents. So this is what you're up against, okay? And just go read their convention, like what their sessions are. When they have their conference, just go read through what they're talking about, and what you're up against. So we just have to apply the law.